De Haan. So it will be a Dutch front row. Then it's Colin Kerzani and Mike van Voogd on row number 2. Jeff Michiels and Wilgot Edqvist on row number 3. Powells and Martins on row number 4. Gerzit and De Oliveira, row 5. Mansell and Andreas, row 6. Andrisani and Castro, row 7. Skulj and Schmeis, row 8. France and Fixke, row 9. Hjorvard and Jennik, row 10. Adolfsen and Rudenberg, row 11. Van Til, De Wit, row 12. Then it is Shabinskas and Rogion and Zuin at the end of the field. So now the drivers are being instructed on the start-finish line to get into formation. As with every race in the Rotax Max Euro Trophy, it is a 2x2 rolling start. So top 10 as we fast approach the end of the formation lap before we go racing in Junior Max for the final time today. It's Haanen from De Haan, row 1. Kerzani van Voogd, row 2. Michiels and Edqvist, row 3. Powells and Martins, row 4. And Gerzit and De Oliveira on row 5. So they're now heading into turn number 9. Yellow flag conditions being exercised by our marshalling team here at the 1360 metre facility in Genk. And they're now being instructed to slow things right down to an absolute crawl. So Haanen from De Haan, Kerzani from Van Voogd, Michiels and Edqvist round out the top 3 rows as Junior Max gets set to get underway for the final time here on Saturday afternoon. So it's Haanen from De Haan on the front row as they go into the tram lines. Red lights on the starting gantry, and we are racing here at Genk. And it looks like Haanen has got the inside line going into turn 1, and it's push and shove. And there's one cart manning the back of another there, going out, and that's put 2 competitors off track already and way down the order. One of them looks to be the 347. So that might have been Michiels and Kerzani coming together just on the outside of turn number 1. So leaders now coming through into turn number 8, 6 minutes and 22 seconds on the clock, plus an additional lap to go in this final qualifying heat for the Junior Maxes. So it's Haanen from De Haan, and it looks to be Edqvist looks to be up into 3rd place. Van Voogd is in 4th. De Oliveira now into 5th. France, Van Til, Castro, Martins have all made up places, as have Skulj. Hjorvard might have been one of those ones involved in the earlier skirmish. Kerzani has toppled way down the order, down to 19th position. Leaders now coming through into turn number 6. And it's just so impressive seeing that back straight and then seeing the adjacent road as well. How many people are, how many of these carts are actually going faster than normal road traffic? But of course, it's very different on a race circuit than it is to any sort of public roads. As the leaders are now coming through, it's still Haanen from Powells now. Edqvist now into 3rd. De Haan now is in 6th position. Now back up into 5th place, having got past Portugal's De Oliveira. So it's still all to play for. Just under 5 minutes to go, and it looks like Haanen is not getting away with it this time. I'm just wondering, is that Powells in the lead of this race now, having got past Haanen? Looks to be the case. Edqvist now up into 3rd place. So there's still some very equal gaps between the top 5. Pauwels was about just under 0.2 of a second behind Haanen when they crossed the line last time, but it's now Pauwels who's got the advantage on the track. Gets his head down, and it's just over 0.2 of a second between Pauwels in the 3:22 and the 3:12 of Haanen. Edqvist in 3rd, Van Vugt into 4th, De Haan into 5th, De Oliveira 6th, France, Van Til, Martens and Castro round out the top 10, with Martens and Castro having swapped positions last time around. Leaders now coming into turn number 6. And Vigor Hjorvard is the only person who is actually not circulating. Looks to have been a retirement. Three minutes and 15 on the clock, plus an additional lap. Still left to go. So Pauwels has extended the gap ever so slightly going into the approach onto turn number 1. And it looks like De Haan might have just gotten past Edqvist for position. That is for 4th. So Pauwels leads from Haanen, from Van Vugt. Edqvist in 4th place. I think De Haan has now overtaken him and taken that 4th place now, which it looks, very much looks to be the case as they approach and go through turn number 6. So it looks like Van Vugt is looking a bit racy here in 3rd and has Haanen in front, with Pauwels still leading as they go across the start-finish line. And it looks like there is a 5-second penalty being handed out, and it looks to be Rudenberger in 3:06. And oh, there's contact! There's contact between Haanen and Van Vugt, battling for track position there, and that's allowed Pauwels to get in front and stay in front at the moment. But all the meantime, this is allowing De Haan and Edqvist back into this battle, and I don't think it's going to stop there. De Oliveira in 6th place, France, Van Til, Martens, Michiels as well. That rounds out the top 10 at the moment. So they now come into turn number 9. 1 minute 30 plus an additional lap on the clock. So Haanen still remains ahead of Van Vugt as the pair clashed heading into turn number 2, last lap around. 1 minute 17 on the clock plus a lap. As oh, that's very brave from Haanen, who goes and pushes pod to pod with Pauwels, and that allows Van Vugt to go up the inside into turn 3. And wait for it, looks like De Haan's waiting there as well. Still sitting there, waiting for something to happen in front. It nearly did happen a lap ago going into turn number 2. So the 3:21 is still biding time. 48 on the clock, plus an additional lap. So the top 4 now coming through into... Oh, and there's a little bit of contact between De Haan and... Looks like I think it was either Haanen or Van Vugt, because they are teammates. So in the lead it is Van Vugt. It was actually Haanen that he had a little bit of a slight coming together with there. Leaders now coming through the final corner across the start-finish line with about 17 seconds on the clock. So it'll be this one plus an additional lap to conclude the Junior Max qualifying action here at the opening round of the 2018 Rotax Max Euro Trophy here in Belgium. But you can't really quite say that it's going to be decisive yet, because Pauwels is still leading from Van Vugt, Haanen, De Haan, Edqvist, De Oliveira. Top 6 separated by just under 1.5 seconds. So the next time they come round to cross the start-finish line, it will be 1 lap to go. Pauwels still has the advantage, but may come under a decisive last-minute attack. You never know what might happen in karting, and we have seen it today already. So they come around the final corner. Pauwels from Van Voort, Hanen, De Haan, the top four. With Edquist and De Oliveira, it's now onto the final lap. Pauwels is trying to keep the car as wide as possible, being on the very ultra defensive, as Hanen is trying to keep in tow with Van Voort, who's currently in second. And I'm wondering, was there a slight slipstream possibility there? Could have been, but they go into turn 6 for the final time. Pauwels has just a handful of corners to go before he takes the win through turn 8 for the final time. So it is still Pauwels, Van Voort in second, Hanen in third place, De Haan, Enquist, De Oliveira, France, Van Til, Martens, Michiels rounding out the top 10. So it has pretty much stayed the same, as there's some nice battling a little bit further down the order. Looks like the likes of Castro are getting some three-way battling as well. So there we go. Nice work, I have to say, by Kobe Pauwels to take the win here. And I'm sure there's going to be a discussion between Mike and Mike Van Voort and Chris Hanen as to say what happened there. Because I tell you what, they got off very, very lightly in that contretemps when they both ended up into turn number 2. So let's run you through the finishing order for the final Junior Max qualifying heat. Heat number 3, groups A and C. So it was Kobe Pauwels that won the race ahead of Mike Van Voort, with Chris Hanen and Robert De Haan making a Dutch 2, 3, 4. Vilgot Edquist from Sweden took 5th, ahead of De Oliveira from Portugal. France from Belgium was 7th, ahead of Sam Van Til. Thomas Martens, Jules Castro, Jeff Michiels was in 11th place, ahead of Andrew Sani. Andreas Skulj Kersani, who had, I think, probably pretty much a race to forget there, because one car clattered into the back of him and nearly went over the top. He dropped down to 15th at the end of it all. Rudenberg, who got a 5-second penalty during the race, would end up 15th, ahead of Mansell, De Wit, Bix, Adolfsen, Zuen,